Welcome back, everybody, to the AI Ventures podcast, where I interview venture capital-backed AI tech founders in person at their headquarters. My name is Adam Kaniz. I'm an account executive at Snowflake, where I work with digital native organizations on their data and AI infrastructure. And today I'm going to be talking with Rakesh Kothari, the CEO and co-founder of Deductive AI. And really what had stuck out to me about Rakesh, obviously Deductive is a really intriguing platform and what they're doing, but he's had quite the background working at some really notable companies, going from Oracle, Amazon, leading engineering at ThoughtSpot, and now he's heading Deductive AI, which in my eyes is the breakthrough AI platform that acts like an expert engineer to be able to reason across complex production systems and troubleshoot engineering issues. Rakesh, I'm really excited to talk with you today. I know we've been talking about this for a few months, so glad we were finally able to get the calendars lined up. You guys have a nice office, so I'm definitely glad to be here. But how's the last couple of months been for you? I think last time we talked, you had just got the $7.5 million in funding in early November, I want to say. So I imagine you guys have been heads down in build mode. What's the last couple of months been like?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Excited to be talking today. It's last few months have been pretty exciting. Like we have very large customers like DoorDash, Foursquare, and others, where we are seeing a very strong traction with the product and building at these times with an amazing set of people is one of the joyful part of building the company. So last couple of months and even before that is been pretty busy supporting all these customers and working building newer and newer capabilities in the product.
Totally. No, that's awesome to hear that you guys are already working with huge customers like DoorDash. And I imagine the goal moving forwards is to continue to expand into the enterprise space. So you guys, it's safe to say, will be busy over the next year or so. But yeah, I'm excited to talk with you today. Really just want to start by getting into your career before Deductive AI. Like I mentioned, you worked at some really cool companies. Then, really get into what Deductive AI actually is and why it matters. Talk a little bit more about your perspective and, future takes on AI and site reliability engineering and engineering itself. And I think there's no better way to really cap it off than just going into what's next for the company. But I mean, with all that being said, like really one of the cooler experiences I saw that you were, an early member of Oracle. Hopefully I say this right. The Enterprise Search Collaboration Suite 11G. I might have mixed up a couple of words there. I was just talking about it with Rakesh. I was making sure I was trying to get that one right. But really, and tell me if I'm wrong, it seems like a system or tool in which employees were able to search across company intelligence at a time really when organizations were really just starting to centralize knowledge. Wondering what was the most interesting part about architecting this tool or system, and if there were any breakthrough technological breakthroughs that you had during this time that you still think about today.
Yeah, I think that was a great experience. I was always been passionate about building search engines. Even before Oracle, I was in my grad school, and before that, worked on very large search engines, building. It's the fascinating part of it is it's very algorithmic, deals with distributed systems, scaling challenges. So those things were pretty exciting. Fascinated by enterprise companies. They have to deal with a lot of security and making sure the systems scale within the environments which has stringent security needs. And so Oracle, this group was like a startup group within Oracle, building a search engine which can securely search all your enterprise data, including emails and documents and all those things.
Yeah.
And so the fun part of building was hey, we're building on top of Oracle database, which is highly secure, and being able to then very quickly index and search and securely serve all those documents, all those enterprise documents to users from different modalities, like from different clients, like your communication applications, your email applications, your web apps. And so that was something that gave me a very good understanding of designing enterprise grade systems.
Yeah, definitely. And I imagine that was no easy engineering feat right there, especially when you're creating a search tool. Was it across like structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data, or just one of those?
Yeah, it is. It is across. It was across unstructured, structured data, across document systems as well as databases, and being able to combine all of that together into a coherent system. So kind of like a very early version of you could say that, hey, Google like workspace search, which was built for Oracle customers.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, yeah, I won't quote you on it, but I definitely can see how those relate to each other. And I mean, that wasn't the only amazing engineering breakthrough that you had throughout your career. You were also, an early member of the Amazon Go team, working on the checkout pipeline. Wondering like what the hardest engineering challenge was with creating a no checkout store, and if you can tell us a little bit more about what the checkout pipeline actually was.
Yeah, so Amazon is a pretty innovative company, like always had a startup mindset. So I joined Amazon back in 2007. And so when AWS was very small, there were only a handful of services. So was working, built multiple systems like ads, was just starting up within Amazon. So I joined ads.
Yeah.
And that went on and became multi-billion-dollar business for Amazon. And then, I worked on Amazon checkout. Like what was the most interesting aspect of that and the whole group and the product was that it was much ahead of its time. The vision was that, hey, you walk into the store and grab stuff and just walk out. Yeah. And so there is no queue, there is no checkout lines, and there is no need for basically having being able to be in the queue for a long period of time, right? So it was removing all that friction. But with that kind of systems, there were a lot of kind of compute, like it was the AI system which was designed to work perfectly in a messy scenario. Like you pick something from somewhere and you drop something somewhere else, and now all of a sudden order items are misplaced, and there is no easy way, for example, to see if an apple is costing this much and a can of pasta is this much, right? And when you put all these things together in your shopping cart, like have you actually categorized everything properly and reconciled so that you're not overcharging your customers, and all of that without really stopping them in their shopping pipeline, like in their whole shopping experience. Yeah. So it was a distributed systems challenge as well as AI challenge together, and kind of store design experience was also very new, because how do you design such kind of stores which are designed for customers to just pick stuff and walk out and they being charged appropriately. So that was the experience we were shooting for. And there were a lot of experiments, and what it taught is like, hey, you need to iterate fast and you need to try out a lot of ideas, and you basically fail many times, but then you learn from all of those experiences and build better systems. So which is kind of which excited me. And as a lead for the checkout, Amazon has a pretty extensive checkout experience, which involves hundreds of services, and they were designed for web experience. Now this is a experience which was in-store experience, and it was a kind of a long-lived transaction that you are creating as you are walking through the store and picking up items. So that was something that was really, really interesting experience, very innovative product.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild just hearing you talk about it. It sounds like something that's just like mythical. There's so many factors behind it. Like you said, distributed systems, so much heavy reliance on AI. I imagine, like you said, there was a lot of rapid iteration that was going on there to be able to make it work. So kudos on you, like very, very interesting. And also too, like, it's dependent on the user experience, right? Like the whole point of it is so that people aren't having to wait in checkout lines as well. So having that pressure as well, I imagine that wasn't an easy thing to deal with. But no, it's very amazing to see. And kind of diving into your most recent experience before Deductive, you were heading engineering over at ThoughtSpot, which is also a very well-known company, and you were working on leading teams to create a human-like search engine for structured data. Why would you say that problem is so uniquely challenging?
Yeah, so ThoughtSpot, I joined as part of the founding team, and helped build the search product again. Like that's my passion, always has been. So now this one was like pretty impactful problem because a lot of human business users in the world, they are making decisions based on data. But making decisions based on data has always been very challenging. Like hey, you have to be like wizard of SQL and data analysis and being able to use Tableau reports easily and then depend on a lot of data engineers to curate the right kind of data for you. So it was a big bottleneck for business users to make decisions, and businesses wanted quick decisions to make better kind of product decisions or go-to-market decisions. So it was slowing businesses down because of all these complications. And we felt like, hey, in order to make data more accessible to business users, you have to remove the barriers which are there. And what could be the most simplest way for people to be getting value out of their data is to make it Google-like. At that time, Google was the benchmark for search, right? And search on a lot of web data. How can you make it as simple as asking questions, on Google, except that this time it's on structured business data? So we will Google like conversational. At that time, it was basically query natural language like search. This was pre GPT days. But then over the course of the year, we made it very conversational and natural. So now you can have dialogue with the data. You could have multi-turn dialogue with your data and build upon your queries to go as deep as you want to, without even needing to know like, hey, what different terms in your data mean, what different columns mean, how to write SQL. All of that is not needed. It's completely natural and conversational. And so it was challenging for many reasons, but the biggest thing about data systems is you have to be precise. You have to be accurate. You can't have 10 different answers when you're asking like, hey, what's my revenue for last quarter? And you can't be, you have to be secure. Like you can't show data which is not to be accessible to certain set of users. So it was designed for very secure access and very precise answers. Doesn't matter how complex your data is. So that made it uniquely challenging.
Totally. I mean, it sounds like there was probably a heavy emphasis on data governance like throughout that process as well, just making sure in order to be able to deliver like a highly specific answer and only one of them, you got to make sure it's the right users actually running the queries and getting access to it.
Yes. Yeah, that was some of the largest enterprises in the world were using ThoughtSpot for making critical decisions in their business. So this was a highly satisfying experience.
Yeah, no, that's really amazing. Well, once again, kudos to you because that's definitely something that I'm sure any engineer would, put it as a feather in their hat throughout their tenure. But I'm wondering, before we get into like why you founded Deductive AI and what it is exactly the platform does, like if there was any other entrepreneurial or product idea that you tackled that, hinted that you'd one day become a founder of a company.
Yeah, I always had this kind of itch to, even when working for big companies, like working for like really startup kind of initiatives, even within Amazon and within Oracle and at ThoughtSpot. So it was kind of building up to, founding my own company. But my passion has always been the problems which are solving, problems which are very large data problems. and building conversational experiences, like building very intuitive experiences for humans for those. So example being like ThoughtSpot is an example where we built a system which is making life easy for lots of business workers, business users, where otherwise it was not accessible.
Yeah.
So always been passionate about building systems which makes life easy for lots of users who are dealing with lots and lots of data.
Yeah.
So in ThoughtSpot it was for business users. Now as building the product, in fact, funnily, like when I was at Amazon, this was back in 2007, I had to literally carry pager for keeping systems, healthy, because whenever the alert goes off or some such issue happens on your service, literally the pager will go off, and it was very stressful. So I always wanted to kind of build something that makes that part of the software experience really less stressful.
Yeah, you're just walking around and you get beeping out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, I gotta go fix something.
It was very, very stressful part of the job. Now, and that was throughout my software career. Any team I joined, like 50-60% of the time was actually going in keeping systems healthy and scale and resilient, and rest of the time was going on coding. So if there's so much of the time and energy is going in building reliable systems and making sure that they work as they are designed to, something has to be done about it. It's like $1 trillion problem. I am assuming all the software that is being written and needs to be supported.
Definitely.
It felt like, always felt like, hey, there are some engineers who are wizards in those, and then there are lots of engineers who lack that level of context and resourcefulness and being able to figure things out very quickly, especially in stressful scenarios. So this felt like a problem that is inaccessible to lots of users.
Yeah.
And it's a very large data problem, except it's logs, metrics, traces, events, all these things. So always felt like something has to be done about it. Felt it across different companies over the course of my career, and that kind of was the genesis of doing something with Deductive.
Yeah.
In this space.
And I think that like really ties into my next point, going more into like what you're building today, like with Deductive, it does really seem like a culmination of your past experiences. Like you mentioned, like this was a problem that you identified during your career as an engineer, as an engineering leader, that you were always solving for, and you realized needed a company to actually come in and solve for it. But wondering more so, like going from an engineering leader to a founder of a company, I'm sure you might still be like hands-on with the platform, but like what that perspective and mindset shift was like for you.
Yeah, from engineering leader to founder, I think you are solving like multiple problems which are cross-functional at the same time.
Yeah.
It's you have to be really good at multiple things. And these could range from hiring, making your first hire, solving a hard technical problem, figuring out the go-to-market strategy.
Yeah.
And kind of keep iterating on listening to customers. So it was a very cross-functional thing that you don't get to see when you are working on one specific role, which is like in engineering. So that was a big difference.
Definitely. I mean, now you're obviously wearing every hat in the company. Like you mentioned, the go-to-market, the engineering, actually scaling the company falls up on your shoulders, right? Mm-hmm. And I imagine like there's a lot of qualities about being, an engineering leader that tie into the way that you think about all these processes in a niche way. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, like, transitioning a little bit into what Deductive is doing now. Can you like explain in plain language terms, what the company actually does and what problem you're already solving for? I know you talked about it a little bit, but say you were talking to someone that really doesn't have much of technology background, like how would you break it down to them in the simplest form?
Yeah, so think of Deductive as your AI engineer, which is debugging production systems. So if, let's say, Cursor is your software engineer, Deductive is your production engineer. So Cursor writes code and Deductive makes that code resilient and make those systems work in a reliable manner. So Deductive is used by organizations, specifically engineers and site reliability engineers, production engineers, when systems are not behaving the way they should be. So whenever alerts happen, whenever incident happens, whenever something is not right, Deductive proactively goes and figures out what's going wrong, and it goes and fixes it.
Definitely. So I'd imagine you probably see a lot of engineers using both of those tools hand in hand, like especially in today's day and age, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of interesting ways in which users are using Deductive. They are using Deductive in conjunction with Cursor, like as a sub-agent, like Cursor connects with Deductive to figure out what's going wrong in production and even to write better code. And then people are using Deductive on their Slack channels where issues are being reported, and Deductive either automatically or someone can call Deductive to look at these things. And then we have web app, we have terminal UI, and then we have Slack app. And so there are many ways of using and calling Deductive along with their coding agents.
Definitely. And I'm glad to hear that there's a platform out there like this, because as someone like myself that's like messed around with vibe coding a little bit, I get to a certain point, whether I'm using like Cursor, Claude Code, where you're just going, banging your head against a wall, trying to understand like what part of the code is actually wrong. And it says it's, fix this, but it actually hasn't. Like there's a tool out there that actually tells you, where you're making the mistake. And oftentimes, like you said, like leverages AI to do it in advance before it even happens. So I think that's really interesting. And you had a pretty interesting answer about this when I asked you before we started this, like what was the precise moment in which you realized that, engineers needed an AI agent that could be able to reason across logs, code, and infrastructure rather than just another dashboard? But would love to have you repeat that answer for the people out there that didn't get to hear it the first time around.
Yeah, I think lot of places where human decision making is so critical to get the work done, all those places are where agents are very helpful. So like pre-agents, all that workflow was done by humans. So imagine you got an issue, now somebody has to look at dashboards, somebody has to look at Slack conversations, prior incidents, postmortems and such. Now it's a very complicated workflow which involves a lot of decision making, a lot of data analysis, a lot of understanding of various different tools and context switching between them. So all of that is a very messy workflow, which until couple of years back, people have been trying to solve with like as a brute force, like, hey, create these documentation and follow them step by step when you see issue like this. But guess what? Like no two issues are the same. They are all very dynamic. So that those systems never worked. And now with AI, our volume of code which is getting generated is compounding. The scaling law is exponential, right? Now AI is doing, with Opus 4.6, they are already doing hours and hours worth of work without any oversight. And it is going to be like in next couple of years, it would be days and years worth of work that is going to be done automatically, right? So with that volume of code being written, this problems compounds. Like even if a small percentage of that is not good and correct, that's still a lot, right? And so now this problem is continuously getting compounded.
Definitely.
So that's kind of what we are solving with Deductive.
Yeah, and I think you've made it really clear about the problem that Deductive is solving. I'm wondering more so from like an economic standpoint, because curious to hear your take on this, but I've heard a lot of founders say just because like a problem is worth solving and it gets solved doesn't mean you're going to be able to scale a company right alongside of it. How did you know that Deductive AI was a platform that was being sought by the market?
Yeah, if you think about like knowledge workers, like the people who are building software, That's one of the largest industry, which is getting disrupted by AI, and so that's multi-trillion-dollar, and millions of developers. In fact, the ones who are now building software are even non-coders. So the volume of people who are generating software is exponentially increasing as well. So because coding is now so accessible, so more and more software is getting written. So it's a large market which is getting like even bigger with AI. So as a business problem, like it is as big as a software market.
Yeah.
And so if you can make all the software that is getting written and put out to the world more resilient, better, faster, then you have a lot of a very large company to be built.
Yeah, and I love hearing like both explanations of the challenge and then also like why does this actually, have an industry behind it? And like you said, it's disrupting the knowledge worker, industry. So that makes sense to me, and I think both of those go very hand in hand with why the company is being able to scale and get the funding that you guys have been able to get. I guess like going more into now the challenge that you're tackling with building out the platform itself, like what would you say are the hardest engineering challenges that come with building AI agents that are reasoning across production systems while also at the same time, scaling securely and effectively across customers' data?
Yeah. So like the biggest trend that we see is every organization they have over the years built a lot of homegrown tools, as well as they are using a lot of other third-party vendor tools, and all these data that is needed to investigate and debug systems are spread out of all these tools, and they are very sensitive in nature as well. So they need to be securely processed and being able to be efficiently used whenever the issue happens. So organizations vary in their kind of propensity to share all this data to a system like ours, and so that's why we built a system which is as easy to be deployed within organization as it is to be used in the cloud hosted environment, because enterprises requirements vary. And so the engineering challenges that we have solved is to be able to ingest, or not ingest, query data wherever they might be very securely, and being able to learn and improve very quickly as they are looking at all these different incidents and alerts and different episodes of investigations, and being able to learn and improve much like any smart employee would. So that's kind of the system architecture that has been really the cornerstone of how we are building the system.
Yeah, definitely. And going a little bit more into like the models and what companies require, like what's your opinion on leveraging open models versus closed models versus domain specific models when you're building AI agents that are reasoning across logs, code, and infrastructure?
Yeah, I think the generalized models have become very, very powerful.
Yeah.
To be able to do a lot of these open-ended tasks like investigations and problem solving when something is not going right. That said, there are different models which have different cost dynamics and different reasoning needs. And so depending on because of the nature of the problem solving in the middle of incident, not every step of the problem requires same amount of reasoning. So we use multiple models to be able to be cost efficient and fast in doing these investigations. So we use both, like we are not training our own models, but we are using a wide range of models to be able to get the end-to-end task done with a certain level of accuracy and speed, and continuously improve from there.
Yeah. I mean, do you think it's almost situational, or is it almost like the same across any environment?
It's usually same across any environment. Like doesn't matter what domain the industry we are operating in. It's all at the end of the day is dealing with lots and lots of data and lots of reasoning and lots of quick decision making as well as deep thinking.
Definitely.
So depending on what the needs are, the right model is selected for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that, but at the same time, that's complicated still as well. So, yeah, no, that's pretty interesting. And I'm curious to hear your perspective on this because I'm sure you'll have a good view of it. But wondering, your hot take, what you think is overrated in terms of AI and, reliability, observability space right now, and maybe as well like the double-edged sword, what's currently underrated or potentially misunderstood.
Yeah, I think more the overrated part of it is that a lot of applications out there are basically putting like building AI applications more as a summarization tool, which is like, hey, look at this dashboard and summarize it.
Yeah.
Now that's it's kind of overrated, in terms of its utility, because what you need is more generalized, agents which can do lots of different things. Not just like point-in-time summarization.
Yeah, like simple analysis rather than you think being able to like go back and forth with an agent. And I think this goes back to like your love for creating query engines and being able to get like a specific answer if you're gonna prompt it specifically rather than just doing like a surface level analysis.
Yeah, I think and that goes to the underrated part of it. Like, hey, what's underrated is the capability of these agents and the with every new iteration of underlying foundation models, like their ability to actually independently do a lot of work on behalf of user accurately and with speed.
Yeah.
Is underrated how fast it is actually growing, and being able to accomplish.
Definitely. Yeah, well, I think that's what we're seeing with like each new model come out. People are just like, wow, like this is insane. I think especially as of late with like Opus 4.6, just like the gaps that are being jumped in between each one is pretty wild to see. So I'd agree with you there.
Yeah, whatever forecast you are having with the amount of work that they can do, it is beating all those forecasts. So it's kind of there's lots of potential.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm also curious to dive a little bit more on something specific that I saw you write on your LinkedIn. If you don't already follow Rakesh on LinkedIn, I highly suggest it because he posts some interesting stuff on there. But you talked about the internship model of vertical AI agents, which essentially switches the perspective of how companies onboard and evaluate them. You talked about how they should be hired rather than just bought. How exactly, if organizations do take this approach, does it, benefit them, or how does it, switch the, way that they think about AI as a whole?
Yeah, I think the way industry is looking at AI agents are based on outcomes that they deliver. Mm-hmm. And so let's say you are hiring AI SRE. And if you are not hiring, like let's say you are evaluating an AI SRE product, and if you are thinking of it being resolving issues with a certain accuracy within a certain amount of time, that's an outcome, which is like, let's say you are hiring an engineer and they are expected to deliver on a project. That's an outcome that you expect that if we hire them, these outcomes will be possible. My product roadmap will move faster. So hiring of an employee and procuring an agent have a lot of similarity, because you are kind of thinking of these agents making those engineers better, faster in delivering their outcomes, because they are augmenting them. So the reasoning that I have here is that the traditional way of buying software doesn't work in case of agents, because they are very much like engineers. They are hired on potential and their ability to learn and improve and deliver over a long horizon. So their outcome on day one may be different than on day 30.
Yeah.
and 6-month marker and a year marker. So it would be unfair to evaluate these agents within like a week, because what they are going to be delivering on over the course of a year is, think of like your 10x engineer delivering over the course of a year. So because hiring an engineer is such an efficient process, hiring an agent should also be similarly efficient. It should not be long drawn POCs that basically right now a lot of companies are doing.
Yeah, I think you made an interesting point, which is that, when you're choosing to, integrate an AI agent, you got to look at it from the point of view as a long-term investment, right? Like you said, its performance on day one isn't going to be the same performance that it's going to have on day 100 and so on and so forth. And this isn't the case with all software platforms, but I'd say like a hefty majority of them out there, if you buy them, you're getting them for a specific service that they give you, right? Like it's not going to do anything more than what you think it's going to do on day one. So I think that's that theory, that approach that you take to it, makes a lot of sense. The internship model, I like that.
Yeah, like
you might have to trademark that one.
Yeah, like the model where, hey, you hire someone for internship and now they delivered something and you made them a full-time hire.
Exactly.
So that's one way of thinking about it. Or you basically hire them like a at-will employee, and if you're not satisfied, you can you can part ways, right? So that's a traditional software model, and this like the evaluation of it and selling of it is very different than the model for agents. In fact, agents, it is fundamental that they learn and improve and actually deliver more and more. So you're kind of, when you're buying an agent, you are actually getting a system that is delivering 10x more value over the course of the time that you're using it. You don't get that with traditional software. Like, let's say you buy Atlassian, it's the same tickets that you're creating. It's not like you're getting this to be smarter over and over.
Totally. Well, yeah, no, I love the analogy with the intern. Although, I've come across some great interns in my day, but I don't know if I've seen them 10x their ability to do the job within that period of time. So hopefully it looks like agents are going to have some more potential. But yeah, I want to go a little bit more into like the future of all this. Like, you're building in a space that's advancing extremely quickly. I'm wondering, over the next 10, 20 years, do you see AI agents becoming fully autonomous within site reliability engineering and engineering itself? Or do you think, like, to some degree, there's always going to be a human in the loop, even if it's extremely minimal?
I think in 10 years, for sure, there is going to be like a huge amount of work that will get done 100% automatically, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, today, hours worth of work is already happening automatically.
Yeah.
So I think the human involvement will be much more at a higher level of abstraction, which is basically, clearly specifying what you want to happen and kind of conditions under which you want that system that you want to get done needs to operate. Like, you could define requirements around, hey, I want this kind of latency behavior, or this kind of cost behavior, or these kinds of experiences that I want. And once you define that right, the whole work will get done automatically, and that's the trend that we are on. So I do see like, hey, the work will shift at a different level than how it is today. Most of the work that we are doing today would get automated.
Yeah, definitely. And no, that's why I was interested to hear your take on it, because like, as someone who avidly scrolls X and hears, everyone's opinion on whether or not like engineers are going to be fully replaced, or if AI is going to be used more as like a tool to your tool belt type of thing. I'm curious to hear your perspective, like whether or not you think engineers are going to be replaced, or if instead it's going to accelerate like their ability to have more developer productivity. I feel like my personal take on this, and I'm no engineer myself, but I'd rather have an engineer using an AI tool that accelerates productivity rather than just like a business person using an AI tool to do engineering. So that's, if the human is always going to be in the loop, I can see engineering jobs not necessarily getting replaced, but almost like up-leveled in a sense. But yeah, I'm wondering like what your perspective on that is, like in the long term.
I think engineering jobs, and much like any other job where it could be legal, it could be accounting, it could be every industry where a lot of human work is going on in decision making and complex workflow, they will all get automated with a very high degree of confidence, even on a longer horizon. So what started a couple of years back where agents could do only few minutes worth of work. Now you are seeing them hours and hours worth of work in every industry. And that with even architectures where multiple agents are coordinating together, they could do even more work.
Yeah.
So all of that will continue to accelerate. I think it's much like any disruptive technology. When that happens, the work shifts to a different level.
Yeah.
So there are lots of new kinds of possibilities that would emerge, irrespective of which discipline it is, which would require a different level of sophistication, where the humans will be needed. So I think kind of what humans are used to doing right now, that won't be needed, but there will be newer needs that would be which basically would define the new workforce.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think you explained it really well, right? Like it might eliminate like the certain need for that specific, engineer right now, but it could like redesignate them to do a different type of job potentially.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a good way of framing it. And I think you mentioned a few of them right there, but like what enterprise tasks do you think are going to be fully transformed and replaced by AI in the near future? If you were to make a prediction on that.
Yeah, I think anything that what's already getting replaced is anything that basically work across variety of tools to accomplish a certain goal, and being able to do that doesn't matter however the messy the system is. All of that is basically getting automated, and so the sophistication level of your tasks that would get automated over and over is going to increase. So simple data entry tasks were getting automated earlier. Now it is multi-step workflow. Now it's workflows which are basically emergent, like not defined a priori, but newer requirements are coming up while you are doing the task, and it is able to navigate and do that. And so those long range work, which kind of in the process of doing so, you kind of come across newer and newer requirements, and then you are able to independently achieve those as well. Those kinds of work is continuously going to be disrupted and automated.
Yeah, definitely. Where there's a lot of long, messy, manual tasks.
Yeah. Those are completely getting automated. I think if we kind of convert any kind of workflow as like sequence of steps where human decisions are in between those steps, like doesn't matter what those steps are, they will all get automated to accomplish what the goal was. And what as a result would happen is the amount of work and the innovations cycles will reduce. And earlier, what was not solvable will be solvable in reasonable amount of time, and so that would lead to newer possibilities, which is to be kind of discovered whether they what those possibilities will do to the ability of AI agents to accomplish those as well.
Definitely, and I think as models become like more and more accurate to the concern about like how reliably they can actually do these jobs is starting to diminish more and more. I feel like that was like the biggest concern, when AI agents were becoming popularized. But I feel like you honestly don't hear. Maybe it's just because I live in Silicon Valley, so everyone's just not opposed to AI, automating all of this type of work. But I feel like I don't hear as much about that concern as you did maybe like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see how power hungry these applications become, and so the only bottleneck could come when your resources are just not enough to accomplish those tasks.
Yeah.
And so the power dynamics could come in the way, compute that is needed to get those stuff done. Just the sheer amount of work that is out there to be done and the resources to do it, power included, could come in the way of getting those.
Definitely. And I think you actually just pointed out something that ties into my next question. But for like organizations that are looking to integrate AI, what do you see as the biggest barriers? I think one that I'm seeing is processing power, right? And your ability to actually have a team to manage that as well. But wondering what you think about it.
I think more often than not, the bottleneck is the organizational change that is needed, just in the mindset and the cultural change. That's the biggest barrier to get the right level of adoption. Like even today, when we look at enterprises, there are pockets within the enterprise which are able to get the most out of the tools that they are using, and large majority are still behind in adoption curve. And that's because of just this internal resistance of using these tools. But that is something that's going to soon change as well, because just like people who are able to use these tools are going to be so much better than the ones who are not. And so naturally, like, it would be a competitive kind of pressure to learn and do it.
No, totally. I mean, people that want to use typewriters don't want to use computers. No, that's not fair to say. But it is funny how you see like more and more of like the older generation starting to mess around with, some of these frontier models. But I think, as someone that like deals with a lot of legacy organizations too, especially like ones that are like managing their data on premise, I see it on the daily of like people that, I don't want to call them not forward thinking, but they're, like you said, definitely like resistant to change and, scared to like make that leap of actually leveraging AI. But I think what's going to become, ultimately the make or break point is when all of their competitors implement it, and then they're starting to get beat so bad that, might be going out of business because you didn't make this decision, right?
Yeah, if you don't change, then of course you will be phased out. And the time horizon for someone becoming irrelevant is also compressing. So you have to act fast. So a lot of these enterprises, they are scrambling to adopt AI because they also know that, hey, if they don't do it, their competitors would, and they would get disrupted.
Exactly. So there's hesitation, but there's also pressure to do it quickly. So there's a fine balance. It's just about what side you're on for it. No, that's funny. I'm wondering too, just from your point of view as an engineering leader and your expertise, like over the next 20 or so years, like what AI breakthroughs are going to happen that are going to completely revolutionize engineering productivity? I think within the last year or so, we've seen some significant ones with the evolution of vibe coding. But do you think it's going to be similar to that, where like natural language is being brought in to streamline coding tasks, or is it something altogether?
I think software is already getting disrupted big time, because software engineering is already getting disrupted, where AI is where these agents are really good in writing a lot of complex code, understanding code, being able to test it. So what's going to happen more and more is an extension of it, like the entire software development lifecycle, from the point of view of the beginning of starting at a zero line of code to full-fledged systems which are running operationally 100% of the time, completely resilient. All of that is going to happen in a very short amount of time. Because these systems are going to be, thanks to product like ours and the coding agents, as well as every system in between. I think all of that is going to get much, much better in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
So that's already software engineering is kind of completely disrupted from where it was like 2 years back. And it's no longer just code generation, but like the whole system, the entire software development lifecycle is going to get completely automated.
Yeah. I mean, it is wild sometimes, like if I'm just like bored and like looking for something to watch, you like watch a video on YouTube of not even someone that's extremely like proficient in coding, but just being able to completely hard launch, an application using one of these like IDE tools. It's just crazy to see what someone that actually does have engineering expertise is going to be able to do within the next 10 to 20 years as this continues to evolve. So I'm definitely interested to see it. I like to mess around with it a little bit and see what I can get by with. But yeah, no,
10 to 20 years is actually quite a long horizon. I think you should be thinking in terms of 2 to 3 years.
It's going to be that quick.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. All right. Well, you heard it here first from Rakesh. 2 to 3 years, we're going to be hard launching software all the way through. No, I'm excited to see it. The evolution having so quickly is just like something that's fun to keep up with, especially when you're in an area like we are and you feel like really immersed in it as well. Yeah, man. But I want to finish out by really just talking more about Deductive and what's actually next for the company. We mentioned this already, but you guys secured, $7.5 million in seed funding back in November. What has this allowed you guys to do so far, and what's the plan moving forwards?
Yeah, I think growing our team, our go-to-market motion is something that's top of the mind.
Yeah.
Getting product out in the hands of as many engineers out there.
Yeah.
So distribution is really one of the top of the mind. Like, how do you make it very easy for people to use it, as easy as how they are using Cursor or Cloud Code and other tools.
Definitely.
So that's something that's really top of the mind.
And I'm sure, you're going to say massive when I, ask you the question of this, but like how big do you think the AI site reliability engineering industry can actually become?
Yeah, so the way we think of our product is that it's not constrained to just site reliability engineering. It's like AI for anything to do with production systems. And it's basically the entire software development lifecycle. The moment the code is written, all the things that are needed to make that code run the way it is designed to be is where Deductive would be. And that is hundreds of billions of dollars kind of industry. And we are, of course, not going to be the only one. It's not one company for the whole world. There's going to be many players. And there are already people, there are incumbents and there are new startups like ours, and there are other companies which are basically operating in this space from various different angles. But I think having a super agent like ours, which is very generalized to accomplish any of these tasks, are going to be in a very good place in such a large industry. So we are very bullish.
Definitely, yeah, and we talked about this before, but yeah, I don't think Deductive just plays in the reliability industry. You guys tie into this other large niche industry that's combining, observability, DevOps, reliability, really the software development lifecycle, like you mentioned. So I think it's going to be really interesting as you guys continue to scale, where you end up. And I'm wondering, in terms of your vision and what success would actually look like for you as a founder in 5 years, what that is.
The success would be that no engineers have to wake up in the middle of the
they don't
night.
have to carry around the pager anymore.
Yeah. So it will be as delightful as writing software is. And so the stress of the job will go away, and we'll see Deductive out there helping millions of engineers in the world solving problems.
Well, that's the goal. That's the vision. I think it's a good one to have. And, I don't think there's any other better way to end this than I want to talk about something that you also wrote about on your LinkedIn called the founder product fit. And I'm wondering, first, if you can explain a little bit more about what that actually means, but also just like what lessons from your own journey have shaped the way you dedicate yourself to problems that you as a founder are uniquely fitted to solve.
Yeah, my background has been pretty unique in terms of solving, deep systems problem to very user experience problems where it's very natural and easy for end users to work with. So that gives me a very unique perspective of not just solving large data problems, but solving it for common users who
Yeah.
are not as kind of as familiar with all the tools that are needed to solve that problem. So making it highly accessible, any large data problem, making it accessible to end user. And I saw that in the data space, in analytics space. Now I'm solving it for technical users who are basically dealing with lots of machine data. And it's kind of made me realize all the intricacies of solving that, building that product with a great taste, solving very deeply technical problem,
Yeah.
and dealing with lots and lots of data. So that's something that I've been spent like decades.
Definitely. I think, yeah, you explained like the founder product that fit theory really well and, you know, how it's applied to you throughout your journey. I mean, it's one thing to like, you know, actually witness an issue, but I think the founder product fit, what you're more so saying is like, hey, I've solved for this before, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm uniquely fitted to solve for it at a much larger scale.
Right.
And that's, I think, where you see like the most successful companies, the VPs of engineering, CTOs, the technical leadership behind it aren't people that are stepping in trying to solve a problem that they've only witnessed, right? Like they've been solving this problem their whole life. Right. So I'd say that's where I definitely see Deductive, set up for success. That's my opinion on it. But no, Rakesh, I think that's a great place to wrap things up. I really want to thank you for the time today. It was great hearing honestly more about your career before you started Deductive. What you're building now and why it actually matters, as well as, appreciate the predictions on AI and engineering as a whole, and really just what's next for the company. I think, like I mentioned, just a minute ago, like you guys are really well positioned. You're playing in a highly competitive market, and you're solving a real challenge. So I think those are all the things that take for a great company to scale. So I'm excited to see what happens. But that's another episode of the AI Ventures podcast. If you're interested in keeping up with Rakesh and Deductive AI, I'm going to make sure to include all that information in the show notes below. You can find me on LinkedIn and X at Adam Kaniz. And until next time, this has been the AI Ventures podcast.